Alrighty then, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is Chris Coney speaking, the host of the Cryptoverse. So what we're going to do today is podcast style, which is my preferred method when I'm delivering content online. If you want some face time, the best thing to do is come to a live event. That's kind of what I've decided to do. So today we're going to continue the conversation that I started yesterday in this video called Confusion About EOS Proposal. I'm not going over that again. It's pre-recorded, so you can go and watch it. The intention for this episode is to move the conversation forward. So thanks to everyone who sent some input into yesterday. It was an open inquiry and wow, did I get some good input. So I'm much clearer now about the situation. So special thanks to EOS New York, Colin Talks Crypto, and the Awakenment. We had a few. There's Colin Talks Crypto. He wrote a good comment on the last video if you want to go and read that. This is a post from the EOS New York Medium blog that they shared with me on Twitter. It's called Rethinking EOS Referendum Game Theory, Why 15% Token Participation is Irrelevant. So these are some of the ingredients that I've absorbed, to get a new point of view. And also we looked at this yesterday, which was the EOS Authority Voter Portal thingy. So I'm going to give you the bottom line as I see it now, and then I'll give you the ingredients that I used to come to that point of view. Some of those I've just given you just now. So that's that. And of course, all I'm giving you is my point of view as of right now, which is, my mind is completely open. So it's open to more new information and influence. And that point of view will shift as new information comes into the system, right? So the system being my mind. So what I say today is not fixed, right? It's just my current conclusion. So check this out. It turns out that the referendum system that I have on screen here, this is just EOS Authority's front end for it. It actually lives on the EOS network, but it turns out the referendum system simply acts as a survey tool that block producers then use to gauge what is important to the most engaged token holders. So let me just unpack that a little bit. By definition, if you are voting, you are engaged. Well, you care, right? You think it's a high enough priority to spend time and energy reading the proposals and voting on them at the very least. And if you can't be bothered to vote or don't want to vote, well, by definition, you're not engaged and you don't care, or you don't care enough. Now, that's not a judgment at all. I'm not saying you should care or shouldn't care. It's absolutely fine. EOS has a structure that allows you to engage on any which way you want, right? You can not vote at all, you can vote on everything, or you can, delegate your vote to someone else. I'll come back to that later. So the reality is that the referendum system is just a self-contained, decentralized application that runs on EOS, and its purpose is to act as a town's whole square where everyone can have discussions about what they want to happen on the EOS network. So it's just a self-contained app like any other, right? And the outcome of a vote actually has no impact on the network. It's not like, if we're looking on screen here, it's not like any of these proposals will automatically make a change to the EOS network if some kind of threshold is reached. It has no power. It's just a decentralized application for voting on stuff. That's it. It's just a data collection app. And it has no power to make any changes to the EOS network itself, right? So it also turns out that there's no hard-coded numbers in the system in order for a vote to pass, quote unquote. There's no such thing as a vote passing or not passing. It's just data. So yesterday when we talk about this 15% voter turnout threshold, well, that doesn't really exist. It's just an informal agreement in the community, which really doesn't mean anything. And that's what Colin said yesterday in this comment. What does he say? It actually does not take 15% to enact a referendum. This is not hard-coded anywhere in the software. And that was posted on Twitter, and EOS New York, they didn't fight against that. So that I'll take that they validated that statistic. So the 15% was the hard-coded number to activate the network, and I guess we've just assumed that that's a good number for voter turnout, but turns out that's not the case at all. There is no threshold that has to be reached for a vote. It's just data. It just is what it is, right? So it's just an informal agreement in the community, right? So moving on from there, the top 21 block producers, they ultimately are the ones, or the only ones, that have direct access to make changes to the network. If you remember Coin versus Coin, episode 2, when I did, EOS mining versus Bitcoin mining, this was the model that I used, right? Well, if we refer back to that again, let's just go back to EOS here. this is a very good way of depicting how this works. So EOS, this is like the blockchain, the system in the center. And the 21 block producers, it almost is like rings. So they surround it, right? They are the ones that have direct access to the EOSIO system, the actual system, right? They're the only ones that can interact with it. The backup block producers, which are the orange ones, they connect to the EOS system, but they don't have any power over it until they get voted into top 21, right? So on the outer circle are the token holders, right? And we sit behind, if you like, we sit on an outer circle behind the block producer. So an individual EOS token holder with an individual EOS account, we have absolutely no power or direct power to change the EOS network. We do that indirectly by taking our tokens, voting for who can be in the top 21, and then they, the top 21, enact the changes to the network because they're the ones that have direct access to make those changes. Now, what prevents block producers from doing whatever the hell they want is the fact that the system determines the top 21 block producers every 60 seconds. So that vote of the token holders in the outer circle here, which is the purple circles, we can change our votes every second if we want, right? But the system then sweeps the system every 60 seconds, counts the votes, and then shifts the top 21 block producers based on the votes every 60 seconds. So that's really that's the ultimate way that token holders have power. And what did I call today's episode? I called it EOS token holders have no power and all the power. So what I mean by that is we have no real power to change the blockchain directly, right? We have no power to make changes to the system. The block producers are the only ones that can do that. But we have all the power in the sense that we get to determine who has the power to do that, right? So that's why it's a paradox, but it's also true. So token holders control who's in the top 21, which then determines who can make changes to the network. So while the block producers have all the power, they don't really have any power because we have the power to remove the ones that have the power. So to be clear, there is what I suppose I could call it a formal and an informal way of telling the block producers what we want as token holders. So the gentle way of doing it, which is the informal way of letting block producers know what we want, is to put up a proposal on the referendum system and then have people vote on it, right? That's what this system is for, the referendum system. That's the gentle, informal way of just informing the block producers. Putting it on display. These are the kinds of things we want. These are how many people want it. These are how many people don't want it. But it's just an advisory service, right? We're just providing consultation to the block producers. They can consult the referendum system and get a feel for where the token holders are at, right? It's just gentle. It's just informal. Now, the forceful way of doing it, the more formal way of doing it, of letting the block producers know what we want, is to actually vote them in and out of the top 21 and take their power away or give them the power. And we do that based on whether we approve of their behavior or not, right? If they're behaving in the way we want, we give them a vote. If they're not behaving in the way we want, we take the vote away, right? Now, you would think, wouldn't you, that the blog producers would follow exactly the will of the people by consulting the referendum system and then matching their behavior exactly to what the referendum system says that people want. But the block producers are not forced to do that, right? Block producers have their own free will in the system as well because they're human beings with human organizations. Block producers are not autonomous, right? It's not as if the block producers are automatically controlled by the votes of, the referendum. There's layers of governance in here, right? So the block producers have their own free will in the system. It's just that if they go against like the vast majority of what's the community said in the referendum, well, they run the risk of people removing their votes and then voting for block producers, voting block producers into the top 21 that are behaving in the way that they want, right? And remember, it's only the top 21 that have any real power over the network. Actually, in terms of, they only have power to make changes, fundamental changes to the network, and that power structure changes every 60 seconds. Not every 4 years, like is the situation with offline politics. That's why it is so laborious in offline politics, right? This is why we call it liquid democracy. Every 60 seconds, the power can shift. So you can't get away with bad behavior for very long, right? So liquid democracy it's a lot more forgiving and it's a lot more flexible, right? If I'm a blog producer and I make a mistake and I get voted out, that's instant feedback, right? It's instant karma. I can change my behavior and get back in line with the will of the people, and I get voted back in again, right? But it's competition. It's competition amongst blog producers to align as closely as possible with the will of the majority. Now, it also allows for instant punishment of bad behavior, as well as instant reward for good behavior. And good and bad behavior is defined by the community of token holders, who we have spent money to buy EOS tokens, and we want the best for the network, because best for the network means more adoption and more token price, and we get a return. So it's in everyone's best interest. Everyone has EOS tokens. It's in all of our best interest to grow the network, make it more popular, and all the rest of it, right? Now, the chaotic part of this is when there are many different points of view on, quote, what's best for the network, right? That's the bit that's what the referendum system is for. That helps us to agree and air everything out in public, because every token holder has an individual free will of their own and maybe a slightly different point of view on, quote, what's best for the network. But we have to come to consensus somehow, because this is a shared system. And that's what blockchains are. They're ways of mass numbers of people and systems coming to consensus. And the governance system is the way of people coming to consensus, right? And that's what we're doing here, right? So I'm thinking now, this is where my thinking is currently at, I'm thinking now that the 15% voter threshold is not helpful. We should stop talking about it, right? Because it isn't really there. So let's bin that completely. I'm going to stop talking in those terms. What I would suggest is that proposals are put up, which anyone can put up a proposal, right? That they're put up and they're open for a voting period of, say, 90 days. That data then just sits there as a reference for block producers, right? So they can figure out what token holders want and how many of them want that. So I would say 90 days is plenty of time for anyone who wants to vote. And you only have to do it once, right? So 90 days gives everyone a chance to visit the referendum system, read the proposal, and either vote or not vote. But after 90 days, the vote would close, because you've got to put a boundary on it, right? The vote is finished after 90 days. That then sits as a silo of data for block producers to refer to, and they can get guidance on how to manage their business, right, and what changes they want to make. So block producers, once they've consulted the referendum system, they can then campaign to the community and they can declare their intention to do something that the market research says that people want. Brilliant, right? So then they don't have to second guess or waste time or resources on stuff people don't care about, right? I mean, there's no point in a block producer running around shouting about what they want to do, because nobody cares, right? Nobody cares what they want. The block producers are public servants, so they should completely surrender their egos and just serve the people, right? And if they see something that's beneficial to the network that the token holders don't see, that's an education thing, right? They can say, look, people, you're missing this, and this is going to be best for the network, and this is why. And that's a public service as well, right? And everyone wins. So the block producers don't have to blindly follow what token holders want, because token holders might be misinformed or they might not be aware of a certain thing. So educating the community is also part of a block producer's job. And in terms of voter turnout, it doesn't matter to me how many people vote. Don't really care about that. If you don't vote, then you have to accept that you're trusting the people who do vote to do so wisely, right? Now, the middle way, of course, is to vote for a proxy, once per month. That's better than doing nothing, and it's better than having to spend all the time to keep on top of all the new proposals and all that sort of stuff. So here's my conclusion. Ultimately, those are the three categories of voter that you can choose from, right? From least engaged to most engaged is you can either, don't vote, don't care. That's like the least engaged. The second one would be you can proxy your vote, to someone else. That basically means proxy my vote, trust someone else to vote for me. So that's medium engagement. And then the third one is the most engaged, which is I'm on top of everything. I read every proposal and I vote on all the proposals myself, right? And you can pick any one of those and they're all great, right? But if you don't vote, don't care, well then I don't expect you to hear a peep out of you if the network doesn't go the way you want it. Because if you want the network to go a certain way, yeah, you should vote, right? Because if you're not exerting your will on the network, you have to accept whatever outcome is the result of your inaction. Because inaction is an action. It's a choice still, right? So that's it. That's all I've got to say to you today. Thanks very much for joining me. Hit the old like button if you liked it. If you're not subscribed, hit the old subscribe button. And also, my intention is to become fully voter supported and funded. So I don't want sponsors to creep in. I don't want to have to keep selling courses, really. I want to be fully funded by the audience, because then I'm accountable to you and you only, right? I can remain objective and there's no third party influence or interests that I have to please. The only people I have to please is the people who want the truth, which is the audience. And that suits me just fine, right? So head on over to thecryptoverse.show, click on the blue button, support the show, and sign up as a patron. If you can spare $5 a month, which I know you can, it's just whether you prioritize, truth telling enough to find $5 in your budget to funnel it my way rather than to whatever else you are spending it on, right? And I'm not asking you to pay for content I've already created. I'm asking you to help me fund the content I will create tomorrow and the next day and the next day. So please do that. It would mean a lot to me. It would mean a lot to the crypto community at large. And, it's in all of our interests for the truth to be told. And that's my commitment. That is my commitment. If you support me, I promise you, I will continue to seek the truth in this crypto world. All right, that's all I've got for you today. I will be back with the next episode of the Cryptoverse. So until then, it's me, Chris Coney, saying bye for now.